Hello, everyone. Recently, I watched a film called Creepy, which is a Japanese thriller that came out in 2016. I will say that this movie was well directed. It is about a detective who becomes distraught over his job because a serial killer that he worked on catching tries to escape and murders a woman in the police building. And so he becomes sad and he doesn't really feel right about his job. He doesn't really want to be in his job anymore. And so he quits and he becomes a professor teaching students about serial killers. He moves into a new neighborhood, which is very clean and nice. And his neighbor is a creep. But this creep manages to charm the detective's wife, and she thinks that he's this super nice guy. And the detective says, stay away from this creep. He's a weirdo. And she says, oh no, he's just socially awkward. I'll be fine. So she spends time with this creepy neighbor who's the super nice guy while her husband is at work. And eventually, this creep hits her with a tranquilizer, injects her with some tranquilizing chemical, and he begins to do mind control on her. This creep tries to come across as a nice guy. He tries to come across as just a normal person. For example, when the detective asks him what kind of job he does, he says, "Oh, I work for an institute." Well, what kind of institute? Well, it's an institute about finances or something like that. And it was the way that he said it that just made the detective suspicious. He doesn't like this guy. It's the way he talks, the way he walks, the way he moves, the way his demeanor, his temperament, the way he expresses himself, everything about this guy just screams red flag, and he's a complete creep, as the title of the film says. The title of the film is quite self-explanatory. This neighbor tries to come across as a normal person. He tells people, "Oh, look, here's my daughter. Let me introduce you to her." Turns out that the daughter is just a girl that he has kidnapped. And he hits her with the tranquilizer as well. He injects her with the tranquilizer, and then he orders her to dismember the body of her own father, and she does it out of utter fear. And I think the tranquilizer numbs her brain so that it becomes easier for her to acquiesce to the creep's demands. The creep murders her mother, this young girl's mother, who he tells his neighbors is his wife. He murders her, and then he forces the daughter to dismember the body of her own mother. It's a very creepy film. Guys, if you are the type of person who buys films that are edited for homeschoolers, this is not going to be a film for you. If you are the type of person who gets angry at someone for recommending to you a film that's a little too violent, this is not a movie for you. If you are a person who can appreciate good directing and can appreciate a good thriller, then this is a film that you will probably enjoy. Anyway, one day the detective comes home to find his wife gone, and he deduces that his wife is at the creep's house. He goes in there, and it's very interesting. This is one interesting characteristic that I found about the film. When you open the creep's door, it looks like a normal interior of a house. You see the walls are painted. There's nice tile on the floor. There's some portraits on the walls. There's some cabinetry. There's some cabinets. It looks fine, right? But then once you make a simple turn to a different corridor, there's no paint on the walls. Everything's concrete. The floor is concrete. The walls are concrete, and it literally looks like a dungeon. And this is where he keeps his victims. This is where he kills his victims. What he does is he injects his victims with tranquilizer, and then he'll have a victim murder people for him. So that way, if he gets caught, he can simply say, "I didn't do it, officer. It was these other people who did it." So the detective goes into the creep's house, and he finds his wife, and he says, "Come with me, honey. This guy's a creep," etc. And the creep points a gun at the detective. The detective says, "I know your strategy. You don't kill people yourself. You have other people kill for you, so you're not going to kill me." And this creep thinks, oh my goodness, this guy has figured me out. But the wife hits her own husband with the tranquilizer from the back. Boom, hits his back with the needle, and the cop goes down. So the creep has the detective and his wife put in the back seats of a van, and he has the young girl who he claims is his daughter driving, and he is sitting on the passenger seat. And the detective and his wife had a dog named Sam, and it's a big poofy dog. Japanese people like these big poofy dogs, I've noticed. And the dog is also in the van. And they're driving to a new neighborhood. The reason for this is because the strategy of the creep is that he moves into a new neighborhood. He finds who he can manipulate, who he can manipulate to trust him enough, and then he injects his victims with the tranquilizer, and then he has them do horrific things to each other. And then he moves to a new neighborhood. So he's moving to a new neighborhood now, and he's going to move the detective, his wife, and the young girl to a new home where he can have them do whatever it is, whatever evil that he wants them to do. So they stop by this new neighborhood, and he tells the young girl to go buy some snacks, and she puts some coins in some food dispenser. And while this is happening, the creep decides that he wants to murder the detective's dog, Sam. So he takes his pistol out. He points the pistol at the face of the dog. The dog starts whimpering. It's quite heartbreaking. But then he thinks to himself, I have this detective here who is under the influence of a tranquilizer drug. I'm going to have him kill his own dog. This is some sort of sadistic thing that he enjoys. So he gives the pistol to the detective, and he says, kill your own dog. This is how confident this creep is in his own ways, in his own strategy. So the detective points the pistol at his dog, waits a second, and then he points, and the creep is looking at the dog. The creep is not looking at the detective. The creep is looking at the dog. And the detective points the gun at the creep while the creep is not even noticing, and the detective says, this is where you fall. And the creep goes, huh? Looks at the detective, and the detective goes, boom, 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 and kills them. The young girl, who has been under the control of this creep for months, sees the creep's dead body, and here she is for months under this guy's control, getting injected with tranquilizer, murders her, she has murdered her own parents, and she starts screaming in ecstasy and jubilation at seeing the death of this evil murderer. And then the detective's wife, she's in this daze, and then when the daze, I think, wears off, she starts screaming as if the drug has been suppressing all of her fear and all of her terror, and now she's free, and she just screams all this pain out, and the film ends. Cults have used drugs, such as the Aztecs. The Aztec civilization used drugs in their religion. The Incans used drugs. They used ayahuasca. And now you have people telling us, oh, go take shrooms, go take ayahuasca. It's disturbing. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.